If you enjoy this podcast summary, please consider subscribing. Okay, so I just listened to a really fascinating conversation between Rich Roll and Robin Greenfield, and I have to share it.
It's all about this incredible experiment Robin is doing essentially. He's trying to live with literally nothing. The core of it is this: Robin believes we can be more free with less. And he's not just talking the talk. He's walked the walk, quite literally. He walked 1,600 miles down the Pacific coast. And as the culmination of that journey, he gave away everything he owned, setting up residence in Griffith Park with absolutely no possessions. He's on a mission to exist on this earth in a way that doesn't destroy it, but actively contributes to its healing and reconnects us as humans. He wants to avoid contributing to the injustice and harm that he sees in the world, and instead live a life of positive impact. It's a really long-term project for him, a process of self-discovery that's been unfolding over years. Interestingly, he doesn't lean on any single philosophy. His drawing from universal truths and wisdom traditions like Buddhism and indigenous cultures, things that emphasize the idea that there isn't one single right way to live, and that we need to move away from divisive thinking. The idea to own nothing came to him during a Vipassana meditation. Had been thinking about it for years, but it solidified in that moment. He wanted to simplify, to live with integrity, and to free himself from the responsibilities of running a nonprofit he'd previously founded. It wasn't just about the physical challenge, but a deep mental and spiritual shift, working to move beyond individualism towards a sense of oneness. The journey itself was about shedding the past. He committed to finishing all outstanding obligations or canceling them before arriving in Los Angeles, essentially clearing his mind. He even went so far as to get rid of his ID passport, birth certificate, everything. It was about confronting the reality of having absolutely nothing and truly letting go. This isn't just a personal experiment, though. It's a challenge to the status quo. He's testing what he calls Earth Code, a way of living in harmony with the planet and avoiding harm to both people and the environment. He knows that puts him on a collision course with societal norms and even the law at times, and he's willing to accept that. He sees it as part of the story he's telling, a provocation to get people thinking. Robin isn't simply a minimalist, is taking it to an extreme level, pushing boundaries to see what's possible. Is very aware of being a public figure and using his platform to share his message, especially considering that our society consumes a disproportionate amount of the world's resources. He sees this as a form of nonviolent communication, challenging the system in a way that isn't aggressive. Despite owning nothing, he's supported by others and manages to live comfortably. But he's also realistic about the risks involved, even prepared to go to jail if necessary, seeing it as another opportunity to practice this simple, non-possessive way of life. It's fascinating how he navigates the digital world too. He relies on a small team to manage his online presence, which creates a bit of a paradox, as he doesn't own those platforms. He is working to address that hypocrisy and detach from those digital spaces. They touched on the ego aspect, too. He's shed financial attachment, but still has a large following, which can be ego-boosting. He's questioning whether he needs that digital presence to be effective, and his goal is eventually to log off completely. He's building on a long tradition of non-ownership, referencing monks who wander with only what they need, relying on the kindness of strangers. What makes Robin's approach unique is that he's doing it publicly, making it more relatable and accessible. He's deleted his Twitter, LinkedIn, and even his personal Facebook account, each step feeling increasingly liberating. He had a real shift in perspective about 5 years ago, realizing he was no longer motivated by self-interest. He's still working on his ego, but he feels he's made significant progress. He's even noticed he doesn't get the same dopamine rush from social media anymore. He's moved from focusing on outcomes followers, views to simply doing the work, living his message with integrity. He's finding a lot of contentment and happiness in this way of life, even while owning nothing and sleeping outdoors. He emphasizes that quality of life takes time, and that our obsession with convenience actually leads to a sense of emptiness. He believes that taking the time to meet our basic needs, growing food, making things ourselves, creates a deeper connection to life. He points to the idea of enough, questioning whether we really need. He argues that convenience always comes at a cost often exploitation of people or the environment. He wants to remove himself from those systems and reconnect with the natural world. He believes suffering is inevitable, but we can choose what we suffer over. He shared a story about making his own shoes for the walk, using deer leather and natural materials. He felt deeply connected to the earth, even burying the worn-out soles as a way of giving back. He talked about spending time in Olympic National Park, feeling like a part of the ecosystem, and recognizing that our role isn't to leave no trace, but to be a part of the earth. He acknowledges the shoes weren't perfectly ethical, but felt they did less harm than mass-produced alternatives. He's aiming for minimal harm, and believes we need to reconnect with the earth to feel truly at home. Robin's journey shifted with a pretty conventional upbringing, with hippie parents who valued nature. But he initially wanted to be normal, to fit in, to achieve financial success. It was through documentaries and books that he realized the system was flawed, and he began a radical transformation. He's not sure if he has free will, or if everything is predetermined, but his journey has been powerful, leading him to a place of simplicity and freedom. He's always been drawn to pushing limits, and a pursuit of justice and truth have driven his changes. He's learned to compartmentalize and focus on his path. He's also taken a vow of non-sexuality for 4 years, seeing it as a way to protect himself from corruption. He's committed to complete transparency, sharing his past experiences to promote healing and honesty. He believes that truth and transparency are more important than avoiding criticism or cancel culture. He believes happiness comes from connection, self-acceptance, and purity. He emphasized that living in alignment with your values is synonymous with happiness. Robin wants people to question their own lives, to ask if they're living in alignment with their values. He's created a website with resources for sustainable living and encourages small changes like growing your own food or reducing waste. He'll be in Griffith Park until April 20th, hosting gatherings and events, and then taking 5 weeks for silent meditation and service. He's committed to 3 months of non-ownership and will reassess after that. He is also exploring the idea that owning nothing doesn't mean you can't create. He can write a book by speaking his words and access resources through libraries. He has even released a book under a Creative Commons license, allowing anyone to reprint and share it. Ultimately, he wants to inspire people to think differently, to challenge the status quo, and to consider the possibility of a more harmonious way of life. It was a really thought-provoking conversation, and definitely worth checking out the original if this summary piques your interest. Main learning from video. Robin Greenfield's journey is a compelling exploration of radical simplicity and intentional living. Driven by a desire to minimize harm to the planet and challenge societal norms, Greenfield embarked on a path toward owning nothing, culminating in giving away all his possessions while living in Griffith Park. His experiment isn't just about minimalism. It's a deliberate act of questioning our consumer-driven culture and seeking liberation from the burdens of material possessions. The core lesson is that happiness and fulfillment aren't tied to what we own, but rather to connection, integrity, and living in alignment with our values. Greenfield advocates for a life focused on enough, recognizing the exploitation embedded in our convenience-based society. By embracing simplicity and relying on community, we can lessen our environmental impact and cultivate a deeper connection with the earth. Greenfield encourages listeners to reflect on their own relationship with possessions and consider small steps towards a more sustainable and equitable lifestyle, like growing food or reducing waste. His story is a call to challenge the status quo and prioritize a quality existence over endless consumption. If you are interested to listen to complete 24-minute summary and unlock detailed insights for each topic discussed in the video, check out quick podcast summaries on Spotify and Apple Podcasts with free trial and later just for the price of candy. Happy listening.